Welcome back to another episode of Behind Our Lens. I'm Jess.
And I'm Steph. And today we're going to be talking about how we started in the industry and what led us to where we are now.
So Steph, tell us about how you realized or when you realized that this is where you wanted to be in the industry that you wanted to get into.
Well, where do I begin? When I was younger, like elementary school age, I was very creative, always loved music. I grew up doing like musical theater and singing and playing guitar, and like for a good chunk of my life I thought I was going to become Taylor Swift.
Wow.
I was going to be Taylor Swift. But that shortly reality check came in and I was like, that's not going to happen. But I always really loved music and it was very creative, very artsy. Always had a camera in my hand, always started video editing also at a really young age. I was like, I think in the 7th or 6th grade when I first started video editing on, what was it at that time? Like
iMovie?
No, before iMovie. It was like Movie Maker on like Windows.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was like old time things. And then as I got into high school, I still was that person. I was just always taking photos, always taking videos. I was actually creating like vlogs in high school.
Really?
Before they were vlogs, really.
Wow.
And then once YouTube came out, I started doing YouTube and putting my vlogs on YouTube and then putting my like music on YouTube and doing all of that. And then as I got into university, I went to York University for film and media and knew that I really wanted to be in a creative space and be in a space where I was creating. I got my first internship while I was in university with Much Music, actually. And it was when New Music Live was around. That used to be MOD. And there were still, celebrities coming to the building and fans outside waiting for them. And that was probably like the coolest introduction into the industry I could have had.
Yeah.
And at that time, that was when Twitter was really big and the digital space was really starting to become what it is now. So it was an interesting time to be there because it was a lot of old mentality trying to learn this new digital age, and I felt like that's kind of what opened my eyes to being like, this is the future and this is what it's going to be, and it's only going to get more digital and bigger from here. So when I was at Much Music, one of the producers that I worked with, he was a video like shooter and an editor, and I loved that. I'm like, I want to do both of those things. Like, how do you choose one? And he did both, so I loved that. And he told me, he's like, if you're going to make it in this industry, you need to know how to do everybody's job. You need to know every skill. And then for some reason that kind of stuck with me. And then from there, I just continued trying to learn everything I could, learning more about video, learning more about photo, learning Photoshop and Adobe Suite, learning the production side of things. I also then, once I graduated university, started into the industry really as my first paying job as a production coordinator for marketing teams for television broadcasting companies. So I've learned kind of every spectrum of the industry, but always felt that creating myself was where I needed to be, and that was always part of my journey, even if it wasn't my full-time job at the time.
Yeah.
So just continuously, learning different skills of video editing and shooting and photography, and then just trying to make my own content when that wasn't my full-time job, because that was the only way I could really like use that as an outlet and get better, because you only get better if you continue to do that type of work.
Yeah.
So I kind of made my rounds in the industry in different broadcasting companies, doing a lot of production work, but also a lot of like on-set work. I was like a production assistant on a TV show, and then wrangled for award shows, and then, administrative stuff for marketing teams for television shows. So kind of a whole spectrum of things, but always also knowing that music was something I loved and wanted to be in, because on my spare time, all I would do is go to concerts and, watch my favorite celebrities and sing and play guitar and write music. So I knew that was a part of my life that I always wanted to also incorporate into my work. And then when this job came up at Virgin Radio and Chum, I was like, this is literally, there was a job like meant for me, it was this one.
Yeah.
It's doing everything I love, creating video, photography, web design, social media, and also with celebrities that I love, with musicians that I love, going to concerts. So it kind of in a weird way all came together, which you don't realize as it's happening.
Yeah. You see it afterwards.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but that's what led me here, and I have no idea where I'm gonna go from here. I feel like people always ask, like, you know, where are you gonna go next? Like, what's the next step? And I'm like, I don't know, because for a long time this was it.
Yeah.
You know, I worked so hard to just even get here.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of just basking and enjoying the moment for now, and then we'll see what's next. But yeah, that's how I got here.
I just watched a really interesting TikTok about someone saying the same sort of thing, where people will ask you, where do you see yourself in like 5-10 years? And they said, I don't plan that far in advance because it's a waste of my time. Because time is valuable, and I don't know where I would be in that time, and so many variables like are moving around with that.
Exactly. Like, obviously you can have goals and set expectations for yourself, for sure. Like, I'm sure, you know, if you asked me 10 years ago where I wanted to be, I was like doing this probably. Yeah. But also it's okay not to have that expectation on yourself and just kind of see where things happen, because you don't know where you're going to be. If COVID was any example of,
oh my gosh,
of shaking things up, like, you have no idea what's going to happen and what can change, and sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad, you know? So
yeah,
it's okay to also not know, and to just enjoy and kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? How'd you get here?
Well, a long time ago. No, so I lived in Kingston, Ontario at the time when I was growing up, and I was always, same sort of thing, like very creative. I was always drawing, coloring, doing different things. Then it slowly went into photography, cameras, design, all of that. And then I basically had an idea of wanting to do graphic design and just like all of those things. So I was in yearbook, like photography, art. That was the side that I knew I was drawn to. I did every single thing you could imagine when I got into high school to try to just like get more into that.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing extra credits. So then I was able to take off an entire semester of high school to do basically like a full-time internship.
Oh, amazing.
Type, like co-op. So I forced the radio station locally in Kingston to hire me. I said, it doesn't matter what you've had in the past, I am the one. And so it's really important to like be persistent and show that like you have what it takes, because I think that's also something that happens a lot, where they'll just get people that don't really care.
Yeah.
And then the reputation is sort of tarnished of like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
But I worked really hard. I had a portfolio.
Yeah.
And I was always taking photos at shows, and I put that all together, and I did everything while I was there. And I think that's the most important thing, like you were saying. Always learning everything that you can and just absorbing it like a sponge.
Yeah.
When I worked there, I did photography for them. I did like concert stuff. I did street team type stuff, promotions, front desk. I did board operating.
Yeah.
So I knew so many different sides of things, and it was so much fun to get to see like the community stuff and going to shows and like setting up in advance and getting to see the artists coming in. And so that was the first sort of real side that I got to be involved in.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I was there for a long time. So I was there until 2016. Nice. When I went to do my bachelor's in Australia.
That's right.
So my schooling is all in graphic design and digital media, but I always loved music.
Yeah.
I was always at a show. I was always, like, that's why I knew I wanted to go to the radio stations.
Yeah.
And I was an avid, like, station listener. My mom always was. And so basically from there, I knew I'm going to go do my bachelor's, and when I come back, I want to move to Toronto because that's where everything's at.
Yep.
And it's always sort of a dream, like when you grow up, being a fangirl and growing up with Much on TV.
Yeah.
That's like the iconic sort of building always that you think of. It's
For sure.
$299.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, I knew that I had to sort of get my foot in the door, and I knew I'm going to move to Toronto and just sort of put any feelers out there.
Yeah.
And as soon as they had openings for Street Team, I got in that way.
Yeah.
And then I worked really hard at all the events, and I always made sure I was available and sort of kept...
Yeah, ready to do anything.
Yeah, ready to do anything. And that's where it sort of started with the concert coverage again.
Right.
So I love taking photos, videos, everything it shows. I just feel like I love enjoying the show, but getting to share that where other people get to see and, you know, maybe one day go, I want to see that artist or that show.
Yeah.
And so from there, I did that all the time. And then I slowly sort of started doing work for iHeartRadio. So then I got brought up to iHeartRadio Canada and got to do many different wild things. And I got to do the MMVAs, which was so crazy from like going as a fan so many years before.
Right.
And like doing red carpets and things like that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very full circle, and it feels very surreal, like growing up watching that stuff and being on the outside perspective and then getting to work where we work now.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing. Working the MMVAs, because I got to do the same thing, was a really cool experience, because growing up as Fangirls, that was our, you know, big show here in Toronto.
Yeah.
We would just go to the MMVAs and see all our favorite artists and be on the outside, and then once you're working in it, it's such a different feeling. But that's obviously, thinking of it full circle, kind of exactly what we're doing now, you know, just being like right there up front and center with these artists and but being professional and building our skill set that, you know, you're supposed to be there.
I think that's a thing too, though, that's really good advice for anyone trying to get into the industry is, I don't know if I just always had a really good understanding of like all of these people are human beings, right? And some people maybe just have a harder time controlling it. I don't know.
Right.
But maybe starting so young in radio, there were so many people coming in and out. I always was very conscious of like how you're acting with the talent. You know, you have to sort of set that boundary of like, I'm a fan, but respectfully, you're getting to do this. And that's such a great opportunity that you have to be professional.
Yeah, and I think that was something I learned really quickly too, because obviously, like, huge fans of so many different artists, but I don't know if it's just, is it just a conscious thing that we had, like being in a professional setting and knowing like, you can't be crazy, you gotta be cool. Yeah. And also like,
you can be crazy later.
You gotta wanna be cool because you're like, you know.
You don't wanna embarrass yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When I worked at Much Music as my first internship, there was so many celebrities that came through, and I bring up the Jonas Brothers in every episode. But
it's okay.
They're like, you know, some of my my favorite artists, and they came to Much Music while I was an intern, and that was like wild to me because for the past 5 years, all I did was, you know, wait outside and try to get a photo and go to their concerts, and then, you know, working my full-time, you know, internship job, all of a sudden the Jonas Brothers are coming to my work, and I have to like keep it cool, you know, but I did, and I freaked out later for sure. But I feel like that was a good, you know, kind of even introduction into the whole life of this, you know, industry that we're in, and being like, you know, these are your top artists, and you're acting like chill, and, you know, doing your job right as well, because that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
No, seriously, because I'll never forget when I was in Kingston, it was Marianas Trench was on tour, and Down with Webster was opening. And Down with Webster, loved them. Yeah. And they were my favorite. It was like peak too. Yeah. And they said, oh, we need someone to go and pick them up from the venue to come to the station for the interview.
Did you pick them up?
They asked me to pick them up. And so I drive down there in the station vehicle. Okay.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there getting communication from like whoever was in between. And they're coming out. They tell me, okay, they're almost there. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, okay, let's see what happens here.
Wow.
And they got in the vehicle and instantly did like a double take, and they were like, what are you doing here?
They know you?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I work for the station.
Oh my god.
And so it was so funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we talked it was such a, like, fun experience, too, of getting to do that. And, like, I drove them back after.
That's so
and, like,
fun.
we got to have, like, a real conversation.
Yeah.
We did the interview. I took photos. Like,
yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, too,
nice.
right? It's, like, nice because, well, obviously, you kind of want to break that barrier between fan and artist where you can just be, like, normal with them, you know, which is also has been the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Just being able to be normal, you know, coworkers kind of.
Yeah.
With these artists, it's been a cool transition from fangirl to professional. Yeah. You know?
Speaking of your internship at Much, what was, like, one of the coolest artists that you saw while you were there?
Well, actually, prior to my internship, I actually used to go to Much Music quite often to see my favorite artists. And I got to go see Taylor Swift.
No way.
And that's when she was obviously very new. I'm pretty sure it was the Fearless era.
Okay.
And one of my friends actually got chosen for tickets to go to Much On Demand to see Taylor Swift, and he decided to bring me.
Oh my gosh.
Which I am grateful for. Shout out Josh. And it was crazy. I had to ask my mom to get off school because it was like a school day and you had to be there earlier. So I remember going to school that morning and being like, I'm going to go see Taylor Swift. Like, I'm leaving early. Anyways, went to Much Music, sat in the front row, got to take a photo with her, which was so cool. She grabbed my camera, took it. It actually like flashed while she was like giving it back to me. And then she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let's take it again.
Oh my God.
And she took it again. And I was like, thank you so much. And it was, that was like one of the coolest moments. And that I was so young, and thinking back to it now, like Fearless era was so early on in her career. But it was amazing. Like, thinking back to that, I'm so glad that happened, because then obviously I've never met her since.
Yeah.
Because she's impossible to meet. But
I feel like it's only gotten harder.
Yeah, but that was something I'll remember forever. That's for sure.
Yeah. Were you able to get tickets for the Eras tour?
Well, I tried really hard to get tickets to the U.S. leg of the Eras tour. Was not successful. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't have $5,000 to spend.
What?
But when she released her European dates, I'm actually going to Europe anyways next year, and it kind of worked out that while I'm in Europe, she has like a Paris date, a Portugal date, and a Madrid date, all kind of around the same time that I'm going to be there. So I put in for Verified Fan for all three. I got rejected from Paris, but I got accepted to Portugal and Madrid. And so the way my trip kind of works, Portugal would make the most sense. So I woke up really early because it was Portugal time.
Oh my God.
And I woke up at 6 a.m. and like logged into the queue. I waited 3 hours on this queue on the same blue page because it's not Ticketmaster, it's a different company.
Oh.
And I was on Twitter trying to see if anybody else was getting tickets because I really didn't understand how this was working because it's not a normal ticket site that we have here. So 3 hours in, like checking the site, my phone stayed on the whole time. I'm on the bus commuting to work on the page hoping to get in.
Oh my God.
I get to work, finally get let in, and all that's left is VIP. So kind of pricey, but not $5,000. So still in my budget, let's say.
Yeah.
And after I think it took me like 45 minutes to even get tickets into my cart.
What?
Because every time I tried to put tickets into my cart, it wouldn't let me.
Oh my God.
So I just kept trying and trying and trying. And I finally got 2 tickets to go see Taylor in Lisbon and Portugal in VIP. And I was crying. I literally got up from my desk and screamed and ran through the office screaming. And
That's
everybody
amazing.
already knew why. But yeah, it's amazing. And now I have a countdown. And it's 10 months till I go see Taylor Swift in Portugal, and I can't believe it.
I feel like that's a show that you could easily see multiple times.
Oh yeah, like if I could go to every concert of hers on that tour, I would.
I also feel like, too, besides the surprise songs, I bet you between legs there's going to be some
Yeah, well, she already changed the set
Yeah.
list. She already put Long Live on it. She took off 'Tis the Damn Season. But, you know, I'm sure she's always going to be changing it.
Yeah.
Especially as she releases new things.
Yeah.
But I am thrilled. I am so excited. And every chance I can to bring it up, I do. It's an accomplishment.
It is.
It was
You should get an
really
award.
hard. Honestly, it was really hard to get tickets. It's crazy, but it happened. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I'm so excited. So if you're going to Lisbon to see Taylor Swift, let me know. We can meet up. So Jess, speaking of getting tickets to extremely tough concerts, what was the hardest ticket that you've gotten?
Probably one of the many One Direction shows that
Yeah.
I went to. I saw One Direction 18 times.
Oh my gosh, 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the last time was in London,
Nice.
England. And, but that one was easy, so that wasn't the issue. I was always, for like many of the first shows that I saw them, I could never get floor seats. So that was always my goal. Then once I started getting into the sales where it seemed to be going my way,
Yeah.
then I wanted better and better
Oh,
seats.
gosh.
And so the hardest ones that I ever got were front row.
Wow, you got front row tickets to see One
Yes.
Direction?
I got
Wow.
front row tickets to see One Direction.
Wow.
It was the Ottawa show, and I will never forget it.
Is that when you met them too?
No, I met
Oh.
them at the Montreal show.
Oh, right.
But
Sorry.
see how crazy that is? So when I went to that show, I didn't have floor tickets. So I was in the stands. I was in the hundreds.
Right.
And I was just trying to get into the sound checks that I
Right.
could see them.
And then you met them.
Yeah.
Crazy. I got
crazy.
floor tickets to the One Direction show at the Rogers Center here,
Yeah.
which thinking back, like I don't know how I pulled that off.
Yeah.
But I
That's
did it.
around so that was probably one of the first tours or the second when I started being able to get floor. But I had quite the setup. I used 3 computers, an iPad, and multiple phones at the same time.
Wow.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I did it all to get those tickets.
That's crazy. Yeah. I feel like I've been pretty lucky with getting tickets.
Yeah.
Even Harry Styles, me and a few friends tried for that.
Yeah.
And I was like the only one who got through. And I waited inside like Ticketmaster trying to pick my seats for like 45 minutes, but it worked.
That was hard too. Shout
Yeah.
out to my colleague who, it was their code that got in and
nice.
not, because I didn't even get one, the one.
Right, the wait list.
But that was pre-COVID when it went on sale.
Here's to getting more tickets to all the shows we want.
Yes. And to you too.
Let us know what shows you're going to at Behind Our Lens Pod on all socials. We want to know where you're going to be.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.